week 9 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few quarterbacks I look to get on the waiver wire this week. The first guy, Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears. So Justin Fields, early in the season, he wasn't really doing it for fantasy football, but the last 4 weeks here, he's gone out there and put fantasy points up. He's running the football more, and the pretty much Bears, they're building this playbook around Justin Fields where he can get in open space, run the ball, even throw the ball on the run, and he's better out of the pocket than in the pocket. So the last few games here for Fields, week 6 versus the Commanders, 190 pass yards, touchdown, interception, 88 yards rushing. Week 7 at New England, 179 pass yards, a touchdown, and 82 yards rushing and a touchdown. And then week 8 at the tough Dallas Cowboy defense, 151 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 60 rushing yards, and a touchdown. So right here, Fields, he's not going to throw for a lot of yards, but weekly he's getting at least 40, 50 yards rushing with a touchdown, it seems like. So right here, week 9, a pretty decent matchup versus the Miami Dolphins. They give up the 7th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. So right here, we know Fields, he's a guy that's just going to look to run the ball, not going to get many passing yards, but running the football has been effective for him, especially from week 5 to week 8 now with 19 or more fantasy points in 4 games in a row. So right here, available in 59% of fantasy leagues. I definitely will give him an ad this week. The next guy, Taylor Heineke of the Washington Commanders. So Heineke's come in this Commander team. They've won a couple ball games in a row now. Week 7 in his first start of the season versus Green Bay. 201 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, and 4 rush yards. And then week 8 in Indianapolis with a great fourth quarter comeback for a victory. 279 pass yards, an 29 rush yards, and a touchdown. So right here, week 9, a decent matchup versus the Vikings, and a game where they're going to be trailing most likely. Vikings 6-1 on the season, playing good football. Their defense, middle of the pack, giving up 16th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. And more deeper leagues and 2 quarterback leagues. Obviously, Heineke would be an ad available in 93% of leagues, but he's a quarterback I would go out there and get this week, because quarterback's just been a tough position to really navigate all season if you don't have one of those top 4 guys. This year, the next guy is Andy Dalton of the New Orleans Saints. Andy Dalton, he's been pretty solid for the same team over the last couple weeks here, especially week 7 and then week 8, week 7 at Arizona, 361 pass yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 intos, 21 yards rushing. In week 8 versus the Raiders in a 24-0 victory, 229 pass yards and 2 touchdowns. So right here, week 9 on paper, a decent matchup on Monday Night Football versus Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. They give up the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. So right here, if I'm the Saints, Dalton's playing pretty decent football. Him and Chris Olave have a good rapport. Alvin Kamara is running the football well over the last few weeks here, and he's getting the ball down the field and making plays at least here as Dalton, and not hurting his team that bad. Even though I know at Arizona he had 2 pick sixes, but besides that, he's at least taking care of the football for the most part. So right now, available still Dalton in tons of fantasy leagues. Another guy for deeper leagues, more than anything, 86% of leagues here. I would give him an ad this week. The next guy, Jimmy Garoppolo of the San Francisco 49ers. So yes, Jimmy G, I know he's on a bye week here week 9, but he's another guy going out there over the last month of the season with 20 or more fantasy points since week 5 here. So right now, week 10 versus the Los Angeles Chargers, 15th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. And Jimmy G, he really got Christian McCaffrey involved. What a ball game it was for CMC, doing a lot of things and doing it all. And now this team, they're going to be dynamic once Deebo Samuel most likely comes back to the lineup in week 10. So with all these great weapons around him over there in San Francisco, with Kittle, Ayuk, Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Jimmy Garoppolo weekly should at least get 20 or more fantasy points, and he's definitely a quarterback I look to add this week, available in 51% of leagues. And the 5th and final quarterback I look to get on the wire this week's Marcus Mariota. So this season, it's been a quarterback carousel. Some weeks guys are good and some weeks they're not, but Marcus Mariota, the last 3 out of 4 ball games, 19 or more fantasy points here for Mariota. Week 8, I know he had a great matchup versus the Panthers. 253 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 intos, and 43 rush yards. So right here, week 9 versus the Chargers, it's going to be another home game here. And this is what I noticed with Mariota. He's better at home than he is on the road. So right now, available in 74% of fantasy leagues. If you need him with 6 teams on bye next week, or just struggling at the quarterback position, I think he could be serviceable, putting up anywhere from 18 to 20 fantasy points minimum, hopefully, for Mariota. So that's a few quarterbacks I look to get on the waiver wire for week 9 of the fantasy football season.